to record.
I am, yeah, we are presently, okay, we are presently recording. Welcome everybody to this fantastic virtual cafe. I'm gonna soon pass the buck to Rhonda, our president, but before I'd like to inform you that this is recorded. Also, there's an interpretation button in the bottom right. Either you'll see a kind of a global sign, a globe, or a, more button. So click on that and you can choose which language you want this to be done. Everything will be on the web after this, so feel free. Before I switch to Rhonda, I'd like to just take a moment to emphasize that today or this week was Rhonda's birthday. And so please join me in wishing her a wonderful birthday and just highlighting how fantastic she's been and she is as a president of OBFS. So please, Rhonda, it's up to you.
That was very sweet of you, David. Thank you. So yes, it was yesterday, April 29th. But we're here today to talk about the Climate Toolkit. So that's my anniversary, that's my birthday gift, is that I get to talk about a topic that's really important to OBFS and our members. So our speaker today for this virtual cafe is Andrew Lample, who has been at Phipps Conservatory and Botanical Garden in the capacity of the Climate Toolkit as a Climate Toolkit manager for 2.5 years. And he got his master's in sustainability and environment from the Falk School of Sustainability at Chatham College. It's Chatham College, right? Or university?
I think it's university.
University, apologies.
Quite
so in the sustainability world, the toolkit is something I think that's really valuable, and it's something that we're going to learn a lot about, and it's available to everyone on the call. As soon as we get off the cafe, hopefully you can sign your field station or yourselves up to join this great project. So I won't talk more. I'm going to turn it over to Andrew.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. Happy belated birthday. Many happy returns. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrew Lample, as Rhonda said, and I'm the Climate Toolkit Manager here at Phipps Conservatory and Botanical Gardens in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I'm very honored to introduce the OBFS network to a growing initiative that we at Phipps are deeply passionate about, and that's called the Climate Toolkit Initiative. So the Climate Toolkit is a collaborative network of all types of cultural institutions, botanical gardens, zoos, museums, aquariums, science centers, and now field research stations, working together to address the urgent challenge of climate change. At its core, the toolkit is a platform for sharing strategies, setting measurable goals, and fostering peer-to-peer learning. It's built on the belief that by aligning our efforts and learning from each other, we can accelerate our collective impact. So this initiative began at Phipps, driven by the realization that institutions like ours, trusted by the public and rooted in their communities, have both the responsibility and the opportunity to lead by example. But we also know that we cannot do this alone. And that's why partnerships and dialogue with organizations like OBFS are so vital. So, as this presentation goes on, we invite you to explore how your institutions can join this network, how you can share your knowledge, and help shape how we're all moving forward together in this space. But before we dive into the toolkit itself, I think it's worth setting up some context of why we launched this initiative and how our thinking has evolved at Phipps Conservatory over the last many, many years and decades, actually. So let's launch into it. All right, so Phipps Conservatory opened in 1893. It was, I believe, the second glasshouse conservatory of its kind in the United States, with the first being in San Francisco. And our director, Richard Piacentini, likes to say that glasshouse conservatories are the best example of the worst kind of building that you can build. So it's very inefficient, energy intensive, leaky, and you're essentially cultivating tropical climates in a temperate region. So there's a lot of challenges to be met when dealing with a building such as this. But in the same breath that Phipps opened in 1893, this is what was going on in the city. So if any of you are not familiar with Pittsburgh, essentially it is one of the hearts and the cradle, the birthplaces of the Industrial Revolution and the steel movement specifically. So it was a huge hub for steel and coal mining, coke manufacturing, and steel production. And with all this production here, there was an immense amount of pollution going out into the atmosphere. So huge amounts of carbon emission. And really, you can think about Pittsburgh as, maybe one of the catalysts of climate change, in its entirety. So I think it's important to hold that context in your mind. And Phipps Conservatory came onto the scene as a gift to the city by a man named Henry Phipps, who was the CFO of Carnegie Steel. And he wanted to give something back to the city for, all the environmental damages that they were causing. And they gave this gift of Phipps Conservatory to free for the city to enjoy. So, people would spend hours just standing in line to see the flower shows, to find a respite from the constant pollution and smog. One historical writer, called Pittsburgh at this time like being in hell with the lid on. So if that paints an evocative picture. And so Phipps was a place of relief and a place to connect with nature during this time. And Phipps really ran like that for about 100 years. Over those decades, it fell into a state of disrepair. The city was not maintaining it properly. And in 1993, it was transferred over as a nonprofit organization, and it spun off as the nonprofit that we run today. And I should say that when it became a nonprofit, we adopted a new mission statement, which is central and very vital to everything that we do at the conservatory. So the mission is to inspire and educate all with the beauty and importance of plants, to advance sustainability and promote human health and environmental well-being through action and research, and to celebrate the historic glasshouse. So that line, advancing sustainability and promoting human and environmental well-being through action and research, we really wanted to lean into that, and more so than just inspiring through our seasonal flower shows, but thinking about how can we adopt and embrace that mission throughout all of our operations and all of our public engagement. So that work really began in earnest in 2005, when we opened the world's first LEED visitor center for a cultural institution. And we achieved silver LEED at the time. And, that's just really using sustainable materials, making sure your building is as energy efficient as possible. And we followed up, we realized, this is getting at the heart of the mission a little bit. This is going beyond flower shows, is really embracing sustainability. So what else can we do? So in 2009, we built a state-of-the-art production greenhouse and also a state-of-the-art tropical forest conservatory. So the greenhouse was also LEED certified, which at the time was almost unheard of. And the tropical forest is really beautiful, thoughtful, elegant design that uses permaculture principles, passive heating and cooling, geothermal, to create no greenhouse effect. So it's a model of how conservatories can and should be, but not necessarily how our historic glasshouse is operating. So then we wanted to keep pushing it forward. We realized we had this whole space in the back of the conservatory that was it was an abandoned brownfield. It used to be used as a staging facility for chemicals and city heavy machinery, things like that. And it was just sort of left in a state of disrepair. So we took this back of the house and we thought to ourselves, how can we regenerate this area? Not just to make it better, but to actually regenerate the entire landscape so that it becomes a holistic ecosystem. So this was the picture in 2010, and this is a picture in 2025 as it is today. So you can see we built 2 of the world's greenest living buildings. There are 33 living building challenge buildings in the entire world. We have 2 of them here in Pittsburgh. And we also have just gorgeous landscape that is all native plants. It's seamlessly embracing the landscape in a way that you don't really realize, when you're inside versus outside, when you're on a green roof, when you're on a path. And so honing in a little bit, in 2010 or 2012, we built this first building, which is the Center for Sustainable Landscapes. That's where I'm broadcasting from you, or for you all today. In 2015, we built the exhibit for staging, or sorry, the exhibit staging center, the ESC. This is our facilities building and our props building. And you can see here the native landscaping and the holistic water management system, which I'll talk about in a second. So this really embraced a FIPS-wide mission to go net zero with our water. And so you can see here a schematic of stormwater being captured from our roofs, funneling into different channels to our constructed wetlands and lagoon. We also have wastewater treatment wetlands on campus that we treat all of our wastewater. We send it through a series of filtration systems, and we pump it back into the building as toilet water. And so we boast a really elegant water design here on campus. It's very unique in Pittsburgh. Almost no other organization in Pittsburgh has something like this, where we're not sending any water back into the municipal sewer system. I'm happy to get into this later. We have an issue with combined sewer system and overflow. So whatever we can do to kind of harvest our rainwater and mitigate floodwater and pollution to our rivers, we want to be doing that. So FIPS is viewed as a model now for that kind of work. And we also have a net zero energy strategy. So that's a combination of geothermal wells, solar array, radiant flooring, and wind turbines, all coming together to be 100% net zero energy for our lower campus. And then we're embarking right now on a historic glasshouse decarbonization plan. This has never been done with historic glasshouses, but we're looking at a combination of geothermal and electric heat pumps and radiant water flooring to see if we can get off steam heat for good and go completely decarbonized for our entire conservatory moving forward. So we have a goal of 2026. We'll keep you updated on how that goes. So rewinding a little bit, these are the kind of milestones in FIPS's thinking, and this ties in directly to the Climate Toolkit and how we're thinking about that initiative. So, we have our first LEED certified welcome center, production greenhouses, tropical forest conservatory is incredibly energy efficient buildings. In that same year, we eliminated all plastic silverware. We started composting all of our food waste. In 2009, we eliminated all bottled water from our campus. 2010, we started offsetting all carbon produced from heating of our buildings. Then we got rid of soda, junk food, factory farm meats from our cafe. We achieved a bevy of sustainable certifications, including BREEAM, Fitwel, LEED, Living Building Challenge. We designed a net zero energy modular classroom in 2015. In 2015 and 17, we divested from all fossil fuel investments and then reinvested that money in socially responsible companies. And then we built the Exhibit Staging Center. And in 2020, we launched and we created and launched the Climate Toolkit Initiative. So one final thing I'll say about all this work, it really came from a paradigm of regenerative thinking, which is something that runs very, very deep in FIPS's leadership and how we make decisions. So there are 4 models in thinking that we can all fall into. The first, and what we're probably all very familiar with, and how we see our global economy acting on at scale, is extractive. So that's just really looking at the world as we have endless resources to exploit. We can take at will. The earth is going to keep giving and giving and giving, and it's the human evocative to just take. we obviously want to move away from extractive, but unfortunately, a lot of us still exist in this model. The next is less bad, which is really kind of how the heart of the environmental movement started. So we know there's a problem, but can we do less bad things? Can we recycle? Can we reuse here and there? Can we do our small part? That's moving in the right direction, but that's not nearly enough. Then there's the third model, which is the do good model, and that's really starting to embrace sustainability and forward thinking action. That's really, there's nothing wrong with that, but the only issue with the do good model is that somebody needs to be modeling like what does good mean, what is good behavior. And so it tends to fall into that hero mentality, like we're waiting for somebody to show us that do good. And really what we know is we need to work together and to figure out what it means for each of us individually to do good. So that moves us to the fourth, which is regenerative model. And that's seeing the world not as fragments, but as a whole. We are all connected. We're all nestled within our communities, within our different spheres, and we're all very much connected in this world. So can we operate in a way that not only does not detract or extract, but that it actually regenerates the people around us, the landscape around us, and the community around us? And at the Climate Toolkit, we really want to inspire that kind of thinking and engage folks in how we can all embrace regenerative thinking more in our day-to-day actions. So that brings us to the Climate Toolkit Initiative. So again, we launched this in 2020 through FIPS and in partnership with the American Alliance of Museums, the American Public Gardens Association, Botanic Gardens Conservation International, the Association of Science and Technology Centers, and our most recent and exciting partnership, and thank you to Rhonda, is the Organization of Biological Field Stations. So at its heart, the Climate Toolkit is a collaborative opportunity for all cultural institutions globally who want to learn how to aggressively address climate change within their own organizations and inspire the communities they serve to follow their lead. So I like to, preface this with a kind of state of climate right now. So the IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, they released their final report last year called the AR6 synthesis. And what they found was that human health, biodiversity, and the planet are on the line. And that basically what we do in this next 10-year window will have immense implications for human health and well-being now and for thousands of years to come. So we're really in this opportunity window right now and for the next 10 years where we need to do everything and anything that we can to align ourselves with climate and to inspire our communities and our visiting public and the folks that we work with to also embrace action and take up the charge. So Climate Toolkit, we started thinking about the collective outreach power of cultural institutions. And when you start thinking of the numbers of visitors at these institutions, it really becomes mind-boggling. So there are over 55,000 museums worldwide, 10,000 zoos and aquariums worldwide, 1,800 botanical gardens worldwide. And I'm not even sure how many research stations. I made the slide before. Perhaps Rhonda or one of the folks on this call can say, yeah.
Internationally, there's an estimated 1,400.
Okay, wow.
It varies.
Yeah, so you think about, thousands and thousands of cultural institutions and research stations with, even these numbers are probably rough, but like this tallies up to 1.5 billion annual visitors. That's a huge amount. Think about if you could inspire even 10% of those folks to embrace climate action and sustainability, that would be immense. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it. We want to not only get aligned operationally, but with the community engagement. So the Climate Toolkit was synthesized using two key pieces of climate resources, one being the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and the second being Project Drawdown's Library of Climate Solutions. If you guys are not aware of Project Drawdown. It's one of my favorite climate solutions out there. Basically, it tables 100 climate solutions that exist right now, that if we were to implement these and take them out to scale, we could reach climate sustainability, and that's what's called drawdown. When we're starting to sequester more carbon than we are emitting as a society, as a global population. So it's possible, and the numbers have been crunched. We could do this if we only had the will and the way forward. So, the solutions exist, and now we just need to scale up and out. So we took the development goals and Drawdown's library of climate solutions, and we made our own framework of 33 climate goals within 9 different focus areas. So those focus areas are buildings and energy, water, food service, transportation, waste, landscapes, investments, engagement, and research. So I'll walk us through each of these frameworks and go through, I'll walk us through the focus areas, I should say, and I'll go through each of our 33 different goals. And as I'm doing this, I would invite you to just think about your own institution or research center and ask if you, A, are already doing some of this work, or B, if these are potentially achievable goals in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. I should also say that we're constantly tinkering with this framework, and I would be actually very interested in connecting with folks on this call to take our framework to the next level as we move into 2026 and beyond. But we'll go one by one. So that first one is buildings and energy. So we have 6 goals here. The first is just meeting your nation's Paris Agreement targets for CO2 reduction. That generally looks like a 50% reduction by 2040, but each nation is slightly different. So I would check your international standards. The next is deriving power from 100% clean renewable energy sources that could be either generated on site through solar or wind, or procured through market mechanisms. The next is eliminating all on-site fossil fuel combustion to heat buildings and really just electrifying your generators, your HVAC system, et cetera. If you're building new buildings, the next goal is looking at meeting the International Energy Efficiency Standards. So that's things like IECC, ASHRAE, ILFI, Living Building Challenge, things like that. And we have a bevy of resources to, on the Climate Toolkit site for this goal and every goal. The framework exists. You can go onto the site, climatetoolkit.org, click on any goal that you're interested in pursuing, and then there'll be an umbrella drop-down menu of resources and folks that are pursuing these types of goals. The last 2 are ensuring that your existing buildings are achieving an EUI, or energy use intensity, which is 35% below the median. And really that's just making your buildings as efficient as possible, lighting, insulation, et cetera. And then I'm not sure how applicable this last one will be to anybody on the call, but just looking at decarbonizing your glasshouse facility. So if you have a conservatory, a glasshouse, we have a whole working group dedicated to trading resources and best strategies for decarbonizing these historically difficult buildings. All right, the next focus area is water. And so that is looking at really 2 goals. One is reducing the use of municipal water by at least 25%, and the other is reducing potable water for irrigation on your landscapes and grounds by also at least 25%. I think these goals can push further, but I think that 25% benchmark, that's like getting people started. That's more achievable than potentially going 100% right off the bat. We want to make sure that people are just walking in the right direction rather than being confronted and kind of afraid to embrace like a larger goal like that. So that's looking at stormwater capture, thoughtful water design, constructed wetlands, etc. The next one is food service. I'm not sure if your research centers and field stations have any kind of food service that's offered to either staff or to visitors, but we're really looking at making as much as possible of that menu selection vegan or vegetarian, and then also supporting local agriculture and making at least 10% of your food purchases, if not 50 or 100%, within a 100-mile radius of your site. That's just bringing down transportation miles, cutting down on factory farm meats and all the climate implications that come with that. All right, the next one is looking at transportation. So that's, biking, busing, carpooling, and electrifying your fleet. So offsetting carbon for all work-related staff travel, making at least 25% of your vehicle fleet electric. And we have excluding tractors on there, though there are some exciting electric tractors coming onto the market now. So we might take that exclusion off. Incentivizing your employees to carpool, bike, bus, or otherwise just forgo single occupancy car travel. And then incentivizing visitors for sustainable travel, either, having folks take the bus, having EV charging that's free and ready for your public to use, things like that. All right, the next one is looking at waste. So we have 4 goals here. We have a pretty ambitious one at the top, which is eliminating all single-use plastics in food service, horticulture, gift shop, facilities, and operations. So anywhere that you can intervene and get rid of the single-use plastics, we ask that that's the goal. Then composting 100% of your food waste. And that could also include your yard waste or grounds waste. Eliminating the sale and use of bottled water. Embracing things like, water refill stations or aluminum. And then finally, recycling or reusing all recyclable materials, including metals, glass, and plastic. The next one is landscapes and horticulture, or you can think about this as nature-based solutions as well. So ensuring 25% of lawn and garden maintenance equipment is all electric, getting away from diesel, fossil fuel-based equipment. Ensuring that at least 50%, would love to see this as at 100%, but at least 50% of pesticides and fertilizers used are not derived from fossil fuels and are the organic alternatives. Reducing your grass lawn areas that need mowing, reducing those by at least 10% and encouraging native plant replacements or climate resilient plants. Supporting reforestation to sequester carbon, and converting parking spaces into green spaces to combat rising temperature and urban heat island effect. All right, the next one is looking at investing. It's really 2 simple goals. If your institution if you have endowments that are invested in fossil fuel companies, we ask that you divest from those and reinvest that money into ESG funds or socially responsible investments. Where your money really goes a long way, and if the market dictates that society is no longer interested in supporting fossil fuel-based companies and companies that support pipelines and oil drilling, that goes a long way towards dictating policy, as the years go on. And then we have 2 more. The last one, or the second to last one, is engagement. So that's looking at how is your institution engaging in climate and sustainability with staff and also with the visiting public. And so so we already mentioned the employee incentivization program for reducing emissions, but also that could look at establishing an employee green team to support climate action, assisting visitors in switching to household renewable energy, educating visitors on sustainable horticulture, on growing organic food, the impacts of food choices and waste on climate change, and also teaching facts and best practices to mitigate and reduce global climate change. And we also added one more that is not represented on this list, and that is looking at climate interpretation. So how can you embed messaging and interpretation at your exhibit sites and in your surrounding grounds and fields? All right, and the last one, and what I would love to talk with folks today during discussion, is our research goal. So we have just one goal here. It's very open-ended. It's just conducting region-specific research related to climate change. And that could take on, many shapes and forms, from biochar, soil research, green roof technology, afforestation, and I mean, whole host. I think I have a lot to learn from this network about what could be encapsulated in this research goal. So looking forward to having that conversation as well. And here's sort of a breakdown of all the 33 different goals in our different focus areas. So when folks sign on, we ask them to do a very brief intake form where you choose a focus area that you're either already embarking on or would like to embark on, and at least one goal of these 34 different goals that, again, you are already achieving or that you would like to pledge to in the next 1 to 5 years. And then from there, that's really all it takes to join the network. And then we build a profile for you. We get you connected with our network of 233 different cultural institutions at this point and growing every day. And we get you connected as fit as you want to be connected. You can use this tool as a passive engager or be very, very active, and either mentor others or be a mentee, etc. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use this tool here. So the idea is when you sign on to climatetoolkit.org, you can filter out using our filter function, and you could find folks that are already engaged in this work. So let's say that you have a goal of embracing 100% renewable energy. You could click energy and filter it out by who either has accomplished it or who's working towards it. And then you can see, it'll automatically populate all the folks that are doing energy work. Each of these is a profile. You can click each one, has a contact person, has a framework of what they've already accomplished, what they're pursuing, any resources that they can share, from research to sustainability pages, to mission statements, to climate action plans. And you're encouraged to reach out and to start conversations, or to go through me, and I can be the intermediary, and I'm happy to tee off any kind of conversation on any subject that you would like to explore. So energy, you can do the same thing with water. These are the folks doing food service and waste goals. Landscapes and horticulture, we have a lot of botanic gardens and arboretums, so a lot of resources to share in those two fields. Transportation, here are the folks that are doing electrification work, investment work with ESG funds, and then research. And I think it'd be great to bolster this network with all of your field stations and to really share what we're all doing to push that research sphere forward. And here's engagement as well. So just a few more tools here of how you can use the toolkit. We're in an active collaboration right now with the One Earth Foundation to basically create a bioregions map of our institution. So this is currently as it stands. One Earth created this bioregions map. It's not looking at countries and state lines, but more of our ecological bioregions. And you could go one granular level deeper with ecoregions, but we're just working bioregions right now. And the idea is that you could find neighbors that are already in your bioregion, or folks internationally that are in similar bioregions to yours that experience climate similarly, and reach out to strike up collaborations that way. And so this is an active project. Would love to work with different research centers on specifically the idea of finding different bioregions with similar climatic qualities. That's kind of a tough nut for us to scratch, but I do think there's something there. It would be really interesting to push that field forward as well. We're also, we have a lot of international representation right now. Our toolkit site and all of our webinars and programming has been translated into 17 different languages as of right now. As we get new international partners, it's very easy for us to add those international languages, as you see fit. So, we can do that automatically, or you can reach out to us if there's a language that's not represented here that you would like to see on the site. We also have a number of tools and resources within the toolkit, including the webinar series, different workshops, blog, listserv, newsletter. So on the webinar series, we offer quarterly webinars as a free service to keep the conversation going around best climate action conversations and best practices, best solutions and strategies. These are the webinars that we've offered so far. Everything from electrification strategies, audience engagement on climate change, establishing green teams, embracing nature-based solutions, divesting fossil fuels, climate communication, energy solutions, plastics, integrated pest management, vegan, vegetarian foods, and the works. And actually, Rhonda and I have been in conversation to tap this network for potentially a fall 2025 webinar on climate research. So I might be knocking on the doors of some of your institutions as we get closer to that date. Would love to develop that talk with you all. We also are developing and offering something that we're really excited about. This harkens on the 4 paradigms of regenerative thinking that I was talking about earlier. It's called the Tools of Transformation series, an introduction to regenerative thinking. So this is run by our CEO, Richard Piacentini, our senior director of communications, Joe Reed, and a number of guest speakers like Sonia Bocart, who's a regenerative architect, and Lucimara Letellier, who is the CEO of Regenerative Museums. And this is really looking at deep diving into frameworks of regenerative thinking, things that we call, living system stakeholders, 3 lines of work, place-based potential. Here's an example of one here. So living system stakeholders, looking at all of your stakeholders that are engaged in your institution or organization. And it's, we've heard of classic profit models like bottom line, single bottom line, double bottom line, triple bottom line. But this is really extrapolating and expanding from that. So it's thinking of your 5 key stakeholders being your users, your community, your co-creators, your investors, and then that 5th stakeholder, which is the planet Earth. So like, are the decisions that we're making and the actions that we're taking, are they taking the Earth into account as an equal stakeholder in what we do? And are the actions that we're doing extracting from the Earth or regenerating the Earth? It's a simple way to think about it, but that does get to the essence of regenerative thinking. So that's a quarterly workshop that we offer, with the next one coming up on May 21st, and you would all be welcome to join that if you would like. Finally, we have 4 different working groups. These are really great opportunities for peer-to-peer deep dives into conversations. So right now we're offering workshops or working groups on glasshouse decarbonization. And the principals there are Phipps Conservatory, Royal Botanic Garden Kew, and Edinburgh, or Royal Botanic Garden Edinburgh. We have Electrification, which has 30 different institutions on and is looking at all aspects of electrifying your operations. So that's your vehicles, your equipment, your buildings, and just looking at how you can get away from fossil fuel-based equipment and embrace those electric alternatives. And then we have Climate Interpretation. That's how do you build climate messaging into your institution and engage public in a way that's hopeful and that is inspiring to as a call to action. And then the last one is Youth Climate Engagement. We also have a link to a number of different resources, including a 2030 design palette, the technical review, project drawdown, sustainability index, and many, many, many more. We also have an active blog where we try to highlight different case studies. We'll do case studies on research, on our different partners, what they're up to, things that we're doing at Phipps, and really just things that are happening internationally as well. And we want to keep that active and engaging. And we love when folks reach out to us and say, like, can you please broadcast this great project or initiative that we're doing? It'd be wonderful to share this with the network. We also have a Climate Toolkit Youth Network. So this is looking at if you're engaged in any kind of climate youth work, advocacy work, or action work, if you're working with folks in middle school, high school, college, we have a network that's dedicated solely to the practitioners of those networks. And there's a bevy of resources that are specifically dedicated to how do you activate and engage your local youth to set up the next generation for success, and start regenerating your region right now. This is a picture from our Youth Climate Advocacy Committee that we launched at FIPS in 2020, along with the Climate Toolkit. And we engage with 40 different high school and college age kids every year on a number of place-based and local ecology projects. So here's just a snapshot of our different partners. Again, this is what the website looks like, and each one would open up into a different profile where you can see different resources, different frameworks. Again, we have 233 different members as our network right now. We're really looking to keep growing that, keep building this network in a way that hopefully one day every cultural institution will be engaged in this work and dedicated to embracing climate action and sustainability. So I'll just leave you with a quick quote from our director, Richard Piacentini. So in a regenerative world, individuals move beyond thinking about themselves in isolation and see the larger social and natural systems that we collectively need to survive. This is the paradigm we need to adopt for the long-term health of the planet. Climate change, loss of habitats, and biodiversity are all symptoms of a problem that can be addressed with regenerative thinking. So lastly, we just came up with this slogan over the last couple of weeks, but it must be us, it must be now. And it really, that distills down to the essence of, we all just really need to do everything that we can in this next 10-year window. This network exists to amplify action, to inspire action, and to just keep that conversation going. And hopefully the more folks that join, the more vital this initiative becomes, and the more great work that we can all do together. So if you go to climatetoolkit.org, you can see on the top bar the Join Us section. Click that, do our quick intake form. We'll get you situated, and we'll get you partnered with our network, and we would love to have you. So that is all I have for the presentation. I think I did pretty well on time, Rhonda. I got 15 minutes left for questions, and yeah, I'm happy to answer questions, or I have some questions for all of you if we're feeling shy.
Let's give you a break to talk, and we'll ask questions. I think, what a fantastic network. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I'll just say, so I have our field station already signed up. There are 6 field stations that are already signed up right now. And of course, I had it up and then I closed it, or maybe I didn't. But from Canada to Mexico, where we've got a pretty good spread of stations that have already started to join. And really, it takes like 20 minutes to fill out the form to do it. And it's just, most of us, I think, are already actively engaged in a lot of these objectives. And to tap into this is great. And I guess I don't want to hog the floor. I want to learn a little bit more about the regenerative thinking and stressing that in that kind of skill development for members that are interested, because there have already been 4 talks on, or there are 4 webinars that are available that we could look at the recordings of once we join. Or can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And should I stop my share? Is it better so we can see each other?
Maybe
Sure.
to see. Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. So yeah, for regenerative thinking, yeah, we've been offering that quarterly since the beginning of 2023, I want to say. We've had 4 sessions so far. That's all available right now. You can find that on our site. It's on our webinars page, on our blogs page as well. And we encourage you to dive into those. Those are hour-long presentations, but we've in the recording versions, we've cut out the breakout rooms, so they actually would run probably like 35 minutes or so. And then we encourage you to press pause and to engage in some of the writing activities. So usually those are 2 different reflection exercises. We'll introduce a framework and then do like a warm-up writing exercise, and then drill down into that framework, go really deep into it, and then do another writing exercise, and then do breakout sessions where small groups can discuss in detail about different initiatives that they're thinking about that fall in line with whatever framework we're exploring. And then we come back and do like a large group share out. So we're kind of at an exciting time with the regenerative thinking, because we're now starting to to bring in guest speakers and folks that are active practitioners in regenerative thinking, but in different sectors. So our next one on May 21st is going to be, the title is Unlocking Essence for Climate Impact. And that's with Sonia Bokart, who's an architect with Bulfinch Shepley and or Shepley Bulfinch. And she's been a practitioner of regenerative thinking for a number of years. Got to study with the founder of regenerative thinking, Carol Sanford, in the Regenesis Institute. So she's going to be looking at the idea of essence and how each of our institutions is completely unique, and what makes our institutions unique is, you know, the people that comprise the institution, the ecology where the institution sits, the history and the culture of surrounding that institution, and really the work that we're doing right now. So all those in tandem bring out, each institution has a unique essence to explore, and we want to tap into that and think, how can we really embrace that essence in a way that can magnify our climate impact. So that's what the May 21st hour is going to be about. And then we're going to offer a pretty exciting cohort model where that same practitioner, Sonia, is going to lead a small cohort, maybe 4 or 5 different institutions that are interested, in a 3-part series where it's called Essence Reveal, where we would, those are deeper dives, to be like an hour and a half long each time over the summer. And that's just a great way, if you're interested in like really unpacking essence and thinking about your research station, your field station, and like how you can tap into this work. I encourage you to sign up for that. So that's happening in May. And then in August, we have Lucia Mara, who's really, you guys should all check out her work. She's doing amazing work in pushing forward what's called the regenerative museum field. And that's looking at how museums can very actively use their spaces to rewrite history, and to not in the way that our United States government is as asking us to rewrite history, but to what we talked about earlier, like how do we get away from an extractive historical model and move towards one where we're place-based, we're tapping into our bioregions, that we're embracing our ecology and regenerating our surrounding community. And she really believes that museums and other cultural institutions can be the catalysts of this work. So she's going to be leading that August. So, we kind of take it one session at a time, but yeah, I'd recommend, diving into our previous recordings and then coming to this May 21st session and engaging with it live.
Good, fantastic, thank you.
Absolutely.
I think Philippe has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm curious. Have you tried to recruit any of the land trusts around the U.S., land trust organizations?
Yeah, not actively. I had a conversation with our partner at Duke Farms, and he gave a presentation at I think the latest land trust conference in Portland last year. That was really as far as that conversation went. And as far as I know, nobody signed up from that presentation. Though I would be interested in in dusting off that conversation, because I do think land trusts would be excellent partners for the Climate Toolkit as well.
Yeah, I think that they would fit in a couple different ways that would be really valuable. And they typically, the more successful land trusts typically have access to resources that a lot of organizations don't have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we should have that conversation, Philippe.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about as you're talking is that I don't know if it's true for organizations that you're involved with, but at field stations, my experience is that um, this the sustainability of facilities plays directly into the long-term viability of those field stations when there are budget crises. I wrote a white paper 20 years ago about how sustainable facilities at field stations can help insulate them from the vagaries of budget cycles when they go up and down, because it's a really big problem for field stations. I don't know if it's a problem for your other organizations, but it's one of the ways in which field stations become very, very vulnerable.
Absolutely. And Flip, that would be the kind of thing that we would love to put as a resource or even write a blog post about. And we could focus on field stations with that white paper, but also extrapolate and think like, how can your thinking also apply to museums, gardens, zoos? And I'm sure that it would.
Yeah, because I have visited a lot of field stations in my career, and the most um, consistent reason field stations fail is because during severe budget crises, um, typically sponsoring institutions will reduce or eliminate their funding for maintaining facilities.
Mm.
And then what happens is the field stations end up siphoning money that would otherwise support programs to maintain those facilities. And then it becomes a really vicious cycle because the lack of
Right.
support for programs starts to erode their justification for being, in existence. And it just
Right.
becomes a really, really vicious cycle.
Mhm. So if you can get started, yeah, if you can get your institution as sustainable, as climate aligned as possible, then
Yep.
you can avoid that vicious cycle. Yeah.
I'll open it up. Is there any other questions?
Some of the organizations you have listed also are engaged with field stations. Like I was thinking about California Academy of Sciences,
Mhm.
they're involved with Pepperwood.
Okay.
And so there are some of your organizations actually already have relationships with field stations. And so that's another way
Are you
to.
saying that the Cal Academy, is that their field station or they're just engaged in a partnership?
Uh, they're engaged in a partnership, but Pepperwood was formerly Cal Academy land. And it became an independent field station.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of collaboration that goes on between them. And I can think of other examples if I sit down and ponder it for a while, but I can I can imagine that there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, if you maybe we schedule a call, sometime in the coming weeks, because it'd be great to get that list and do some outreach to those folks and say like, hey,
Yeah,
we're
like for
already.
instance, Southwestern Research Station is part of the um, part of the American Museum of Natural History.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a question, if that's
Mhm.
okay.
Of
But
course.
anybody who has a question can supersede me, no problem. But I found it really interesting, especially that you seem to be so advanced in the in applying all of these concepts in the real world, and not just talking about the theory that we need to do. And the slide you showed that if we just the organizations you mentioned did that, that's my understanding, we would change the world. Is that
That's right.
it would be that's just fantastic. And
Mhm.
as all of these institutions you named were kind of or categories, I'm sorry, um, we're outreach. We're really, some of us are really public facing. So there's a
Mhm.
real chance to have to change the world, save the world here.
Exactly.
That's
Save the world,
fantastic.
save the future of humanity. Like the world is resilient, but I think the
Yeah.
human species is very fragile, and I think we're going to be put to the test in the next, coming decades. And so
Hmm.
we really need to think about, what can we do right now? Like we know that's coming, and there are ways that we can set ourselves up for success, and also just regenerate society and the surrounding
Yeah.
world.
And be an example and an inspiration. I heard
Exactly.
about you through the youth climate, through the Wild Center that I met
Yeah.
this winter, and I think that's also a great initiative. I'm happy to know
Mhm.
that it's joined with you.
Yeah, Wild Center is one of our closest partners. We engage with them on all kinds of initiatives. I mean, they do incredible youth climate work. They also were engaged with a program which I didn't mention called Sea Camp, or
Hmm.
Climate Change and Action for Museum Professionals. So that was like a year-long cohort model where 5 different institutions were engaged in different climate action planning, through leadership of the Climate Toolkit, and then came in person to FIPS for a 3-day retreat called Sea Camp or Climate Camp. great opportunity, and Wild Center was one of the leaders in that field. And also they just did our second most recent webinar on how museums are engaging audiences on climate change. And they have one of the world's leading exhibits on climate solutions at their museum.
That's fantastic. So not just talk about the problem, but also about the solutions.
That's right.
So,
And that's really what all the research is coming up, is saying, you know, like, we tried the inundation of like quote unquote doom and gloom, or like inundating folks with facts and figures, and, you know, trying to overwhelm people, but it actually has an inverse effect, that it just creates more apathy and more kind of climate fear and anxiety. And so now we're like, we don't need to do that anymore. We know it's bad, but we can focus solely on solutions and solely on bright spots and moving forward.
Yeah, and one last thing, do you think, I'm sorry, Philippe, sorry, I know,
Sorry?
but do you think that economically it is, because you're almost saying that it's economically viable?
It's economically viable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. So I didn't have a slide on here, but there's a slide that our president uses where he talks about the difference between like a market rate building, like a pretty standard building that you would find in your office, and then a living building, challenge building, and how, let's say, you know, if you're building a new office, it could cost maybe $12 million to do a new building, or 16 million to do a living building. And most people would look at those two costs and be like, oh, well, I'm going to choose the lower cost because that makes more sense in the moment. But then you look at a long-term horizon and you think about how much it costs to operate those two buildings over, let's say, a 30-year horizon. And when you crunch the numbers, it actually costs $300 million to operate the market rate building, where it costs $15 million to operate the living challenge building. So long term, I think we just have to think about, you know,
scale and time.
Exactly, a scale
Exactly.
and horizon.
Yeah,
And so absolutely, it might be a little bit more expensive to implement upfront, but if you can think in, and this is really where regenerative thinking comes in, like, can you make leadership decisions from a 30-year horizon?
Exactly.
And if you're thinking like that, then absolutely, economically, it makes sense.
So I'll segue to Philippe, because I think that was his white paper said.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Just on that last comment, Andrew, that's exactly the point I was making in terms of field station vulnerability. And I did that same economic analysis with the green building that we built at Jasper Ridge Biological Preserve at Stanford, and it allowed me to create a whole new position from the money savings.
Yeah.
But I wanted to follow up on a question that Rhonda listed in the chat, which is that maybe one of the things that OBFS could do right off the top is start putting together a list of the climate change related research going on at field stations, because there are several of them. You know, off the top of my head, I could think of 5 or 6 field stations that are engaged in ecosystem responses to climate change that have been really, really profoundly important. And I think that that's, you know, making that list available will perhaps encourage people to reach out and make connections with people where they can really start to develop some synergy.
Absolutely. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the next virtual cafe.
Yeah.
We recruit those stations to get them talking. I mean, I'm thinking at our station, some of the new research we have is impacts of climate change, from forestry situations in rural Mexico to lichens and bromeliads, and how they're dealing with less impacted and more impacted. I mean, there's micro level and macro level thinking in this kind of research arena that we can try to tackle. And I know we're out of time, and we do try to keep our 1 hour.
I unfortunately have to run, but it was such a pleasure connecting with this network, and really looking forward to this active collaboration. And I think there's been great ideas that have been thrown around just in this hour, and I think we have a lot more to talk about.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Yeah, you'll need to do another one of those, Andrew.
I'm happy.
Well, we have it recorded, so we'll make it available. I know a lot of people couldn't be here, so the recording will pay off for us.
All good. Yeah, looking forward to
go ahead and actually stop recording. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.